Okay, so welcome to Donify session. This is a session where if you're new to an organization that already uses Donify, you can find out what it does, or maybe you've just got Donify for yourselves and are wanting to go through a setup process. You want to be reminded of what its capabilities are, what it does and doesn't do. Then this session is designed to take you through Donify end to end, so that you can appreciate what it can do for you and maybe start using it in a specific way in your organization. So what we're going to start with is just a brief overview of the two different flavors that Donify comes in, and then we'll delve into the product itself. So as you'll see from donify.com, the website, if you went to the pricing page, you'll see that Donify comes in two specific flavors, two plans, as we call them, the Essentials plan and the Professional plan. The Essentials plan is for startup organizations, maybe moving to their first CRM, who need to get away from spreadsheets because they've realized the limitations in spreadsheets, but want a capable CRM solution to manage their fundraising in. And that's what the Essentials plan is. It's free and it's limited to up to 500 what we call constituents. Constituents being your donors, members, volunteers, the people and the organizations that support you and that you want to keep in touch with. So Essentials is free and it is limited to 500 constituents, and it has most of the features of Donify. Probably as a percentage, something like 98% of the features of Donify are within Essentials. But there are a couple of features which I'll mention as we go through the presentation that it doesn't have. That may be a reason for you to upgrade to Professional. So Professional is the full featured package. You can upgrade from one to the other without losing your data. So if you entered 499 records and then you went to the 500th, then you wouldn't have to start again. It'll just upgrade and you'll get all the new features, and we lift the limit of 500 when you upgrade to Professional. And you pay for Professional based upon the volume of data that's in your database. So if you slide the slider along, you'll see how much Donify costs you according to the number of records in your database. And Donify will scale. It will scale from obviously nothing. You may have no records in your database or a few records, that's fine, all the way up to hundreds of thousands of records in your database. So hundreds of thousands of donors, and some large charities use Donify in that respect as their solution. So you need never upgrade from Donify or have to move to another platform. If you've got a bit bigger or a bit more successful with fundraising, it will scale with you. So that's the two flavors that Donify comes in. And what we'll do now is we'll click on a different tab on my browser, which is showing us the Donify homepage. I'll just log out so we can log back in again to show you what this all looks like. So with your Donify, you get, it's browser based. So to use it, you go to a shortcut. Yours will be app.donify.com. This is my demo system, so it's a different URL. But you go to app.donify.com and it asks you to log in. You'll have a username and password if you've been invited to use the system by your system administrator. So whoever looks after Donify in your organization, maybe you, can invite colleagues to use Donify. There's not a cost for every new user. Donify is for unlimited users. Remember, our billing is based upon the how many contacts you have in your database, how many constituents, not the number of users. So you can get as many of your colleagues to use it as you like, and they can use it for whichever purpose they need in their role in the organization. So by logging into Donify, you won't get this interim screen. You'll just go straight to your homepage in Donify, which is a dashboard. And the dashboard shows you the stats, the metrics in your particular customized dashboard that shows when you log in. So again, system administrators can compose a dashboard with all of the right tiles on it, showing the right sort of information for each user, and you get to see different contents on your dashboard when you log in. When you log in as well, you can optionally add two-factor authentication, which is a security measure to ask you for one of those codes that you can have on your mobile phone that guarantees that you are who you say you are as you're logging in. And you can actually have that set up for a particular device, so it doesn't ask you every time. It'll just ask you the once if it's your regular work computer, but it will ask you each time you try to log in from an unfamiliar location. Okay, so you are the user. At the top right hand side, you can see your initials in a little circle at the top. There's me, RF. And if you click on that, you can find things to do as a user, such as manage your profile as a user, turn on your notifications for the sorts of things you want Donify to tell you about, such as when gift aid is about to claim some money from you from the HMRC, or any kind of notification that Donify sends out, you can set in there. Donify has a task manager, and I've got 48 outstanding tasks on my system at the moment. You can show the guides in Donify. So if you switch that on, it will put in place some video guides throughout the product. Those guides are in the process of being built, so they're not fully there yet, but you can see a little video about each section. And then when you're ready, you can go back in and hide the guides to hide them away so they don't get in your way. So the guides could be a useful way for you to do some specific in-depth training, as it were, feature by feature, as you play those guides on the video in the product. Also at the top of the screen, you have your search bar. You can search in there for constituents by name, by postcode, by email address, any kind of way of searching. You just type it in there and it will return you a list of them. And then down the left-hand side, you have the main menu of your options that you can do in Donify. So we're on the home page at the moment, but you've got an area to go to manage your constituents, opportunities, campaigns, and so on. And we will touch on what they do, if not exactly in depth how they do it, because time won't allow that for everything today. But it will show us a picture of what each piece does. The other things on your homepage, apart from the dashboard, is a summary of the downloads that you've ever done. So you can download your data from queries in Donify, from what we call lists. Your uploads, this is the information you've imported into your Donify, and what we call send to Donify. Send to Donify is a professional feature, which I'll explain a bit later, but it's where you can BCC Donify in any email communications with your donors, your constituents, and it will update them into Donify. So this is where you manage anything that doesn't have a home for that in here. So we're going to work briefly down the left-hand side now and look at constituents. And constituents really are the central concept in Donify for you to understand. So constituents are of various types. You can see the little icons next to the constituents in my demo database here. I have 906 people in my demo database, constituents. Some of them are people, some of them are companies, some of them are charitable trusts, and I can see that by the icon down the left-hand side. Now, constituent types are manageable by you, but when you get a new Donify system, you get a standard list of constituent types, which are things like individual, company, education, faith-based. They're kind of top-level categorizations of the constituents that you have. And a constituent is best thought of as a kind of an entity that can do some kind of transaction with you. So a company can give money, but people can give money. Charitable trusts can give money. People can be volunteers. It's just a way for you to give a top-level categorization to the kind of donor, the kind of volunteer, the kind of member, whatever it is that your organization wants to track. So that's what constituents are. And bear in mind that your constituents will arrive in Donify through a few different ways of entering them. You can, of course, click on the Add button and add a new constituent. So I can choose here to add a new individual, and it will take me to the screen where I just fill out the information and press save about someone's name, their address, their email, save. They're in the database as a constituent. But the thing to bear in mind with Donify is that it's an integrated solution, and many of your constituents will arrive into your Donify through the integrations. Now, best way to explain that is to go back to the website and show you here in the features page what that looks like. Okay, so these are the integrations that you have with Donify as standard. And you can plug, if you use any of these systems, and my bet is that everyone here uses at least one of them, they can be the natural way for your Donify to be populated. So Donify, if you like, is the central hub, but when someone, for example, goes to Just Giving and takes out a page to raise money for your organization, or makes a donation direct to your organization, whatever they're using Just Giving for, because of the integration with Just Giving, that will populate your Donify with a constituent record if that person didn't exist already in the database. So if I went along to Charity X's website, to their Just Giving page, and created a page because I'm taking part in a bike ride or something, then in that charity's Donify will appear a new constituent for me with information about my fundraising through Just Giving already on it. So the integrations of Donify will populate your Donify system. Some of these things you may not recognize, but we'll talk about them briefly as we go on. The other way to get information into your Donify, especially if you're new and you've got an empty database waiting for information to go into it, is to use the file uploader. It's the import tool for Donify. How it's used is covered in our knowledge base. Plenty of articles and instructions in there about how that all works. So the uploader is found under data management, and we provide a template. So you can download this template here, which is an Excel file, and it's going to give you the template for you to fill out with your data so that you can then import it into your Donify system. So that's another way to get constituents into your database, is to import them from Excel through the file uploader. Okay, so let's briefly look at a constituent record of an individual, and I'm going to call up a record that I have recently used, a constituent here called Andrew Pritchard. I can search for my constituents, by the way, by going to all, and if I was to type at the top here in the search, Andrew Pritchard, he would of course come up in the list of results, and I could have typed that in the top search as well. The same thing would work up there. So here is a constituent record, and these are the main concepts of a constituent, which I'll just talk you through now. You have the profile page and you have the timeline page. Profile is who they are, where they live, their preferences, their social media IDs, and things called tags. The timeline is a time-stamped history or date-stamped history of all the engagements that have happened between Andrew Pritchard and us, the charity. So we've got things in here like we've tried to collect his direct debit, but it failed. We've got a record of a phone call that we've taken with him, and we've entered it in there just for the record. Emails that have gone out either through Donify or through MailChimp are recorded in here. Transactions are the donations and the things he's paid for to us. Whether they were online or sending in a check or cash or something like that, they all end up as a transaction. So that's the history. That's what the timeline is all about. All right, so profile and timeline is the structure of a constituent record. Now let's just browse through the profile in a little bit more detail. You have contact details, so wiggle that panel around there so you can see there. You've got name, you've got address, you've got email address, phone numbers, in 3 different capacities: personal, work, and other. Okay. You have this fundraising pages panel here. I mentioned earlier that you can plug in your Just Giving account to Donify, and everything that person then does for you on Just Giving shows up in their Donify record. Likewise, their Facebook fundraising, their Virgin Money Giving fundraising, that's all shown in the fundraising pages panel. You don't have to enter anything in there. That's just a reflection of what they're doing in those other platforms, shown in their centralized record here in Donify. And I can click on the Pages tab there to show me the various things he's done through the various platforms in the past. So we can see he's a good fundraiser. He's taken out a birthday fundraiser on Facebook and a couple of Just Giving pages. Scrolling down, prospect we'll come to later because that's all about major donors, but we have name information, so personal details, name, address, gender, name, gender, date of birth, that sort of thing go in there. We have the preference center. So this is where we record his preferences for being contacted. So that's in two sections. One is the channels. So how can we contact him? He's got green settings here for email, phone, and mail. So we can email him with information and phone him and mail him. But his SMS, his text, he said no to. How do we set those? Well, we can click on Update Preferences and set them, change them according to what he might just have told us on a phone call. But you can also put in front of him on your website an Update My Preferences widget from Donify. So in your Donify setup, you can create that widget, get your web designer to include it on your website, and that will give them the ability to effectively log into their record in Donify and set their own preferences from your website, and that will update it in here on their constituent record. And it will track a history as well of all the changes that were ever made by them or by you on their behalf. So the preference center is there. And of course, when you do a selection for any kind of campaign you're about to do, you can respect those preferences. That's the channels. The purposes are the specific subjects about which he wants to be contacted. And again, this is green and red. Yellow means don't know because we haven't asked him yet. And you can configure this area to be as many subjects, what we call purposes, as you like. Then a concept that is probably the most important concept on constituents to understand is tagging. Okay, so tagging is the ability to categorize the constituents. So this constituent that we're on, Andrew Pritchard, has been categorized with all of the tags you can see on his record. So he's a medium value donor. He's an event attender in the last 2 years. He does cycling and running for us for fundraising. He's a volunteer on Saturdays and Sundays. So these are the ways that you can mark his record and somehow make it clear what he means to you, what he does for you. And those tags are completely configurable. So if you didn't want to have the tags showing here in my demo system, you can create your own tags. All of the setup of your Donify can be done in settings, configuration. If you're a system administrator, you can get into this area and you can find tags, and then you're into tagging, and this is where you can set all your tags up, your tag structure. So just go back to Andrew briefly. We can see from his tags, bottom of the screen here, they're arranged into categories. So the engagement category has got what level of donor he is, whether he's been to any events, whether he's a peer-to-peer fundraiser or not, or a gift aider. That's all in the engagement area. And there are other categories here as well. You can as well also define all of those categories and which tags can appear in them. Funding interests, one of those such categories. Let's just pick another tag from there. And we have added dementia care into his funding interests and outreach. All right, so he's interested in funding those things in the future. Now you can use all of these to select by. So if you want to do a selection from your database of everyone who is a peer-to-peer fundraiser and it's their birthday or something like that this month, then tags is a key area for you to be able to select on, which you can. So select on peer-to-peer fundraisers, and date of birth gives you an ability to select on the month concerned. Okay, so that's information about the profile. Just going to click on the right-hand side here to connections. Connections are how you join your constituents together. So Andrew Pritchard is not necessarily an island. He might know other people in your database or be a member of a church or work for a company in your database. So this is a way to connect him to those other entities. So we can see here the connection type of knows. He knows Andrew patient and is a member of that church. I can view, and it will show me a diagram of the database according to Andrew Pritchard. So these are his connections and the connections that they have as well. All right, and you can navigate your way around the database from this diagram. So if I want to look at the church, click on that record, and I can now see the church constituent at the top of the screen here. We've got a different icon, name of the church up there, and they've got a profile and a timeline as well. So their timeline is, we've got an application for a grant, and they've given a donation, and we've sent them something in the past. Okay, so I'm just going to click back to Andrew and show his constituent profile again. So if you're using Donify across your organization as a general contact management system and you want people to open it up every day if they've had a conversation with somebody, for them to record it in there so that the latest conversation is always visible to people who log into Donify, we can do that in the timeline. So if I go to timeline now, and let's imagine I've just had a phone call with Andrew Pritchard, I'm going to add a new activity to his timeline, and the activity is a phone call, activity type, phone call inbound. Again, that's a configurable list that you can change if you want to. You can associate it to a campaign. So it's the Christmas 2020 campaign. And the notes are, he called us to ask about whatever he was asking about. I can create my task from here. A follow-up task is call back. I'm assigning it to my colleague. I'm not going to call him back because that's someone else's job. So I'm going to assign that to Chloe. And the due date for that return call is end of the month. And we're going to save that task. So we've done two things. We've tracked in his record the conversation that has been had. And you can put attachments onto that record if you like. If it was maybe sent something in, you want to scan it and attach it to his record. And we've created a task for Chloe. Task will be seen at the top of the screen here. You can see my tasks at the top next to my initials, 48 tasks. Chloe will now have one on hers when she logs into Donify. And she'll have an email as well that says you've been assigned a task. And she'll get email reminders, as I do every week, about my unfinished or incomplete tasks. Okay. Also on the timeline would be emails. So you can send an email from Donify out through your email system to the constituent. The advantage of doing that is that you can pick a template, which you design in your Donify system. There's a template editor. So it might be invitation to the open day. Here is that template personalized already with Andrew's name and anything else you want to put in placeholders in here. And I can add a PS on here if I want to as well. And I can then send that email. Let's see if it's safe for me to send. Yeah, it's coming to me, so that's all right. So I'm going to click send email. And that's now gone out through the system. And it's kept a copy of the email that was sent on his timeline. So we can see this entry here, 27th of January, email outbound with an attachment. The attachment is a copy of the email that we sent him. So that's nice and easy to do. The other way to do it, and this is the professional feature I mentioned earlier, is to use the thing called Send to Donify. So let's imagine you were in something else, not Donify. You were in your email system, be that Outlook or Gmail, and you're about to send Andrew an email. You can do that, but in doing that, you can BCC Donify so that when that email is sent, a copy of it comes to Donify as well, and it adds it to his timeline because we can find him by his email address. Okay, so you can BCC outbound emails and then pop it into the timeline automatically. So what I've just described so far is just working through your general email system. You don't need MailChimp to do this. MailChimp comes into play when you talk about email campaigns to many people at one time, or email sequences or automations, which are a series of emails based upon an event happening, like a new donation of a certain value might kick off a supporter journey email sequence, which would come from MailChimp on a sort of triggered basis when that happens. But yeah, MailChimp is generally for MailChimp campaigns, large, high volume, dozens, hundreds at a time, thousands at a time. Whereas what we just looked at there was sending one email to one person, either through Donify, through the add button here, or through the Send to Donify, which is the BCC mechanism. But that's a pro feature. Okay, so that was general use of Donify in order to track communications and the like. Other things, though, appear on the timeline, and you can isolate them on the left-hand side with this filter. So we can see, looking down, we've got some transactions, and we've got some things like sponsored walk and volunteering activities. So transactions is the money side of Donify, and they will appear in your timeline or in someone's timeline when money has been received, either automatically through something like Just Giving or your website donation page, or manually entered through Donify, perhaps because a check arrived and there's no other way to get that in there other than for someone to enter it. So transaction is part of the timeline, but I can isolate just the transactions by clicking on the left-hand side here in transaction, and it's showing me now just the transactions in the timeline. If someone gives on a recurring basis, you'll also see these things called recurring payment instructions on their timeline. So these are the moments when they have committed to give a certain amount of money on a regular basis by a certain method. Okay, and we'll look at how to get those in there in just a moment as well. So that's the overview of a constituent. You've got your profile, you've got your timeline, you've got your tags, which is the important concept there. You have your communication preferences with the ability to update those online. And in the timeline, you've got the full history of everything they do, some of which is manually entered, some of which comes in through the integrations. We'll just look down the left-hand side here for the other concepts just to tell you about. So campaigns, we'll come to opportunities in a moment. That's all to do with trusts and foundations and major donors. But campaigns are the codes under which you track any activity that needs tracking. So a campaign might be a Christmas mailing, or it might be an emergency appeal for such and such a subject, or it might be an event, a sponsored walk. So a campaign is the heading under which you can track activity and responses, usually money, but it could also be volunteer pledges, it could be advocacy, non-financial stuff as well that you want to record. So we can see all the campaigns we have on here, and to set up a new campaign, it's just the add button, campaign, and you can add a new one. The important things to note under campaigns are that you can set a target in your campaign for how much you want to raise if it's a financial campaign. And you can also link it if it's an event. If the campaign is an event like a sponsored walk or similar, you can link it to Eventbrite. Eventbrite then being the event management solution that people can go to add their, to register for an event. That can all be linked into your Donify campaign, so you can measure it in Donify. But the key thing about your campaigns is you get these analytics, and the analytics are the metrics by which you can measure the success of a campaign, the most important of which is generally thought to be return on investment. So how much money you're getting in for every £1 spent. So this one is £2.97 being raised for every £1 spent. And within the campaign, you track the expenditure on the expenses tab. So how much have we spent to do this event or this sponsored walk or whatever it is. And then when money comes in, it's tagged against that campaign, and then it'll know how to work out the ROI for you. So again, read up about campaigns. There'll be videos in there explaining that in a bit more detail for you as well in due course. Lists. Lists is the query tool in Donify. So we've already looked at constituents. What if you wanted a list of all your constituents that have got a certain tag, for example? So these are the lists I've already got of my constituents. I might want to add a new constituent, which is all my volunteers. So I can add a new constituent list. Lists, think of them like queries. So volunteers on Saturday. So if you remember, one of the tags I had was the ability to tag people on the days they volunteer on. So we're now going to set a filter on this list, which is, otherwise it will show us all the constituents in the database, those that have got a tag called Saturday. Save, and it will refresh the results at the bottom of the screen. There they are, and there's my Andrew Pritchard as one of the 5 people it has found about volunteers for Saturday. I can further filter it based upon their comms preferences. So imagine I was going to send them something now. I might want to then respect the communication preferences. So only those who have said yes to email, refresh the list, and it's going to change that 5 to a smaller number to 3. Now from here, I can send that list to MailChimp to start off a campaign. So there's the MailChimp button above the list results there. I can download it as a CSV file, or I can print it as a report, whatever you want to do. You can select the columns. So if you want the email address in there, we can find email. Those three don't happen to have one, but there you go. And whatever columns you select, you can then export as well. Okay, so that's what lists are. Lists are queries. They're selections of your database based upon people's tags and any other aspects. So I might add another condition, constituent type. I'm only interested in those constituents who are individuals. All right, so a further level of filtering, and you can add those up. You have as many conditions in your filter as you like, and put ands and ors and brackets around them if that's what you want to do. Okay, let's look then quickly at the money side of Donify, how you're tracking donations. So if you remember, our constituent, Andrew Pritchard, had on his timeline a transaction. Those transactions can get in there two ways: automatically through the integrations or manually through data entry. So it's easy to add a new transaction into the database. Let's say a check has come through the door. We want to add a transaction. This is what a transaction looks like, whether in fact it was a check or automatic. So to say it's a £100 check. It's in response to a certain campaign, the gala dinner, no, we won't do any events, it's depressing. We'll say the golf day has prompted that check to come through, and I can now save the changes. So that's in the database now as a transaction, £100. And we can also see on his timeline that here's a gift aider, because there's a gift aid declaration. If I just isolate the gift aid declarations and show those, there they are. He's made a declaration on a couple of occasions. So Donify will automatically, on the professional version, add the gift aid to that donation, that transaction, at the end of the following month. Okay, so if you do nothing else and the gift qualifies and the donor has a gift aid declaration on his timeline, then the gift aid is completely automated. You don't have to build a gift aid claim. You don't have to export it, import it, or anything like that. It's all part of what Donify does in the Pro subscription professional plan. So that was getting money in there manually, but you might want to get money into the database through your website. So let's say your website has a donate button. You can choose one of two methods to get donations into Donify. One is a simple form that you can add into your website using our form builder. The other one is a more customized approach for your web developer to design the giving experience exactly as you want it to be. I'll show you a couple of examples. So let's look at this charity here, the Heart of England Forest. They have a donate button. They have asked their web developer to take the more configurable way of online giving with Donify, what we call web widgets, and make a donation, make the donation experience as they want it to be. So they decided they wanted it to be by asking questions. Do you want to dedicate a tree, become a friend, or make a single donation? So they're sort of funneling you down a route. That's their choice. That's just their content on their website. And at a certain point, you're going to settle on how much to give, and then start entering the details on the page here, including card details, and then donate. Now, at that point, Donify picks that up because this is using our widget to do that, our widget code. And the web designer would have done it in such a way that as soon as the donate button is pressed, it pulls the money from the donor's credit card account. We use Stripe as the payment gateway, and pops it into Donify so that you get on the constituent, you might get a new constituent if we didn't know them already, and it will make an effort to check that it doesn't want to add a new one just because someone's made a donation if they were there already. And then it will add a transaction to the timeline, and it will also add a gift aid declaration to the timeline if they tick that box. Therefore, the whole process from receiving the gift through to getting the gift aid on professional is a complete sort of hands-off experience from your point of view. So that was using Donify, the web widget, for them to create the giving experience, the sort of user journey, as it were, on the website of their choice. That's their particular decision, their way of doing it. Might not be your cup of tea. But if I look at another charity that's done that, here is the BBC Radio 4 Christmas appeal. Donate £100. This is, again, it looks completely different because it's the web designer's choice to how to make it look. But then you get through to the point of entering card details and so on. I won't do the whole thing, but it's the same result. It's adding into Donify the constituent and the transaction, the gift aid declaration. That's the sort of more techie way of doing it. And your web designer can take that toolkit we provide, all the documentation we provide them about it, and they can make the donation experience of your dreams, as it were, within your website look and feel exactly as you want it. However, there is a quicker, easier way with just point and click tools rather than coding tools to build a donation form. And that's using Donify's forms feature. So you can create forms with Donify that then are embedded in your website, or even just standalone landing page type forms that you can send people to. So if I look at a donation form here, this is where the form is set up, but I'll click on the preview button and this is what it looks like, just in its bare, unadorned state. So this particular form, when you design a form in your Donify system, you can tell it what it looks like, what the fonts are, what the colors are, what the logos are, what to prompt for, whether or not you want this business about having 3 different amounts, whether you want a specific amount that you want someone to give or a completely free form amount they can type in, whether you want to offer monthly and one-off, whether you want to do that by card, by direct debit. All of the options about setting the form up are within your Donify system. And you do get this with Essentials as well as the professional plan. The only limitation on Essentials is that you only get 3 forms that you can make. So if you wanted more than 3 forms, and forms can be used for things other than just donations. They can be used for volunteer applications, contact us, simple surveys. It's all possible to build forms to do whatever you like, and they will all directly update your Donify system. So the net result is that you've built your form, you've sent people to it through social media, through email campaign, whatever it's going to be, or even a link off your website. They give, and it becomes a donation in the timeline for the donor themselves. And this is what I'm in now, showing you on this screen. Is the form designer itself. So you can decide which elements you want to appear on your form. Within that donation element, you can decide whether you're going to have the 3 amounts or just allow a specific, let them enter a one-off amount themselves. So you can specify all of that, and then the form will behave accordingly to the way that you've designed it, with all the colors and the branding that you want it to have. So that form can be standalone, a standalone landing page. So it's not in your website, or it can be embedded within your website with a simple bit of code called an iframe that you can set up. So when you get your Donify, you won't have any forms in there, but you'll have templates. So if you clicked on Manage Forms, if you've got a new Donify system and you've got nothing listed, I've got lots of forms defined here, but you'll have nothing to start with. You can just click on Add Form and you get some helpful templates. So a Contact Us form, a donation form. You can have a declaration, a gift aid declaration opt-in form. So if you've got a campaign to get people to sign up to gift aid because you suspect that not all of them have, then you can identify them in Donify, send them an email, give them a link to come back to a form for gift aid, and then that will maximize your income. So that's the forms feature, and that was talking about the online ways to get money into someone's timeline on their Donify record. So we've looked at manual entry of donations, website entry of donations, 2 ways: widgets, the techie way, or forms, the easier way. And then there are the integrations themselves. So you may have an account with Just Giving, Virgin Money Giving. You may have the infamous donate button on Facebook, and they all are raising money and collecting money. But the idea of CRM is that you have everything in one place. So what does Donify do to bring that information to a place where it can be seen centrally? So you'll remember that Andrew Pritchard here, we know that he's been raising money for us. He's got 3 pages, 2 of them on Just Giving and 1 of them on Facebook. And those pages will have friends and family giving to those pages. Some of those friends and family are happy for the charity to know about them. It's only about 10% normally, but they sometimes give permission for that, and you can then contact them and then take it from there. Donify handles all of that information coming into the central place here, into Donify. Let's have a look at how that happens. So if I go into the integrations menu on the left-hand side and click on Just Giving, the place where you start is the settings page. The settings page is where you set up your link. You're linking your Donify account to your Just Giving account. And once you've done that and you've tested the settings and it all works nicely, Just Giving, we collect information from Just Giving every night. So every morning when you wake up, look at your Donify system, there'll be new pages that people have set up, hopefully, new donations coming in. And Donify provides the tools in the settings area here for you to set the defaults as to how those things are coded. So in Donify, in the financial area, we have ways of coding a financial transaction for which campaign was it, whether it's for a particular fund or not, you know, the money is going to be used for something specifically or not. And you can actually vary that. If you know Just Giving, you can vary that in what they call custom codes. So you might have 3 people setting up pages under the same for the same reason, but they actually specifically said, I want money to go to different funds. So you can do that with your settings here in Donify. So if I look at fundraising pages tab, this is showing me all the pages for all the people in my Donify here. So all the Just Giving pages. If I click on the this one here, I think has got a donation on it. We can see the donations made by other people to his page. So they become constituents in their own right in Donify with their own timeline with that donation, but it's what we call soft credited to this guy who had the page. All right, so Donify gives you that full linkage between the donor, his or her gift, and the person and the page to which that gift relates. Okay, so you've got the full auditability there. The same concept applies to Facebook Donate. Oh, sorry, just one more thing before I get onto that. You can also do direct donations, as you probably know, within Just Giving. So someone can go to Just Giving and say, I want to give £100 to that charity. That also comes in through the integration. It doesn't get connected to a page because they're not giving that money in relation to a page. They're giving it direct to the charity. So that money also comes in, and you can set in your settings how that gets coded so you can tell them apart. You can see the history. So this is my demo system. It's not hooked up to a live Just Giving, but your history of all the collection of data from Just Giving overnight will be shown there. Facebook, slightly different kettle of fish. So in Facebook, you can have people give money direct to you, so direct donations. People can also set up fundraisers, which are a bit like Just Giving pages. Typically, it's birthday fundraisers, but it might be for something else. They could invent any reason why they're setting up a fundraiser. So on the Facebook, your Facebook page, you will have enabled your donate button, which is sometimes a bit of a task to do through Facebook. But yeah, you will set up your donate button, people will start giving, and that information will come through into Donify. There's a step you have to take in that, which is to export that file from Facebook, because Facebook doesn't have the automated capability that Just Giving has for us to pick that data out for you. So you have to export what's called your multi-day transaction report, and it gets uploaded here. You drag and drop it into your Donify, and then it populates your Donify with constituents and donations from what people have given online. Big advantage of Facebook is it's free. no fees for donations, and it's the data's in reasonably good order. One thing you can do with Facebook that you may want to do is to encourage your fundraisers. So these little colorful buttons here are the messages that we have sent this person because they've set up a fundraiser. So you might put a sort of a template together of, thank you for setting up a fundraiser, or for, good luck with your fundraising, hints and tips about how to raise more money from friends and family. And you can send encouraging messages to people from here. So let's say that we've just identified Fred's birthday fundraiser for a great cause. The link here, if I click it up onto a new tab, is, oh, no, sorry, it's the wrong one. Let me just close that down. I'll open it up by clicking on it. There we go. So if I right click on there, it'll take me to his actual page. This is not Fred, it's me, but it's just a dummy page I put on here for demo purposes, but it's showing my current sort of status of that fundraiser. Get back to Donify, might decide I want to send a message to Fred. So create a message, pick it out of your templates. Thank you for setting up a fundraiser. It's going to copy it to the clipboard. So I then go back to Fred and then I message him. All right, so I can't remember how I message him. Somewhere you can create a message on here. As you message him, you might want to say, thank you for setting up your fundraiser. Click here to give more information about yourself. And it takes him to a form where he can add more information about himself, because Facebook don't give you much. And that might be his contact preferences, his name, his address, his email, that you would then be able to get because you've sent in this encouraging message, and he's then replied and engaged with you. As we can see, if I go down to Andrew's birthday fundraiser, there it is. We can see his donations. So he's had 3 people give donations for his birthday. And it might be that some of them go to anonymous. These 3 are named people, but you can set up an anonymous constituent and have that information on their record instead. Donify will collect the gift aid from Facebook donations. There's no need for Donify to collect the gift aid from Just Giving, because Just Giving does that for you, unless you've opted out, in which case Donify can still do it for you. And then the Virgin Money Giving integration is very, very similar to them both. Same concept applies. But the key thing is that you know at a constituent level, you know who the constituent is, and you know also then everything about them and everything about who has supported their page. So it's quite a powerful tool to integrate that. So that's another way that money gets onto people's timelines, is through them giving on those platforms. If there are other platforms people want to use, there are other donation platforms such as local giving or fundraising or Enfuse, then custom integrations can be built as well. We have an API for Donify, which is a programmer's toolkit to enable them to build an integration if you're using other platforms. But if we go to back to the Donify website, these are the standard integrations that we have. So Just Giving, Virgin Money, Facebook, and so on are the standard integrations that come out of the box, and you get those with Essentials as well as Professional. Okay, let's just change gear then and look down at the remaining items in here. Quick mention of opportunities. This is a pro-only feature, and opportunities is about collecting or fundraising from trusts and foundations, major donors, legacies, corporates, where there is more of a process. I guess it's the opposite of digital fundraising. It's kind of analog fundraising, where you are talking to people behind the scenes in your CRM here. You're tracking them through a process, but it's to do with relationship, applications, and that kind of thing. So if you're a pro user, you'll get the opportunities feature. And when you click on it, as we have clicked on it now, you'll see all of your opportunities, which you can filter on the left-hand side. So I'm filtering just the grant applications. I might filter just the major donor asks, and it will show those applications or those asks across the screen in a kind of a board, it's called a Kanban board, where each tile represents, each card represents an application that you have going. And the top of the columns there are the stages. So gauging interest, approval, research, plan, submit, and so on, all the way through to whether it's successful or unsuccessful or deferred. And then you're done with it. And you can switch that done column off if you want. It's a very configurable system. So the stages, if they don't match your stages, you can change the way they look, and you can put through any kind of process-based fundraising. So major donors, the steps are different. My demo system here, we've got the 7 steps of major donor fundraising specified, and that's what you get out of the box with your Donify system. And the cards represent the major donor asks that I have in there. Before you engage on an ask, you're probably going to want to do some form of evaluating, how much people have to give, whether they give to a cause like yours or not. And that actually takes place back on the constituent record. So if I go back to Andrew Pritchard, there's one more panel on his profile that I didn't show because it's collapsed, but I'll expand it. And this is his prospect research panel. So this is where you record what you know about him, his capacity to give, so how much he's got to give, his propensity to give to a cause like yours, connection, who the relationship owner is within your charity to that person, who the fundraiser is, what their gift range typically is, giving preferences, locations, notes, are all held here in the prospect panel. And that information can then help you select and prioritize who it is that you're approaching for a certain project that you're coming up and that you need some funding for. So Donify becomes this very powerful tool for not only handling the day-to-day individual giving and community fundraising along the lines of Just Giving, Facebook, website donations. That's the higher volume, lower value stuff. But Donify also goes to the other end of the spectrum and provides high-end prospect research and, through the opportunities feature, tracking of those asks through a process. Okay, so you'll find lots of information about that on the knowledge base as well, and shortly you'll find a couple of videos in here as well in the guides area. Lastly, if you want to open data management, you'll see an area there called duplicates. Duplicates is where you can, Donify does a nightly kind of sweep through your database to look for any potential duplicate records and gives it a confidence score. So these are all potential matches that it's found. So if you want to keep your database nice and tidy and getting records merged together where they are true duplicates, then you can visit your duplicates report from time to time and tell it, yeah, that one's got to be merged, so I'll merge it. This one is no action. That one I want to merge that way. This one I want to set to be not duplicates, even though they look like they might be. They're actually different people. And then I can update that. So it's going to do these various merges, just a confirmation there, and off it goes. I won't do it now. It takes a few minutes to go through. But duplicate management, despite all of the safeguards of preventing duplicates, duplicates are a fact of life in a CRM, especially as you grow. And this is a tool that is very useful for keeping on top of that. Triggers is a tool available again with Essentials as well as Professional, but only 3 triggers allowed in Essentials. Triggers are automations. So it's the equivalent of saying, if this happens in Donify, then do that. So we have one here called Mid-Level Donor Journey. I can open it up. This is saying, if you get a new transaction, a donation for a certain condition, so over £500 or something, but under £5,000 might be the condition, then do this action, initiate a MailChimp automation. Okay, so that MailChimp automation might be a sequence of emails that you might call a mid-level donor journey. So that automation is called a trigger in Donify, and it pieces together events that happen in Donify, things like new donation added, and then things that you want to happen as a result of those trigger events. Okay, so that's quite an advanced feature that, again, you can use in Essentials if you want to, but also in Professional. We've mentioned settings, going into configure things like your tags. It's also where you invite your colleagues to use Donify. And you can also monitor your account and your billing and that kind of thing, which is coming along here in the account area of your system admin settings. So that in a nutshell is taking you around what Donify does. A couple of points about where to get help when you need it. There's always the help button at the bottom here, which gives you the chance to ask about something. So gift aid eligibility. And it will give you an article that may help you there, or you can contact us by creating a ticket through there. So that's where you can get immediate help. You can also, if you want to, go to our knowledge base. It's open. You don't have to be logged into Donify to see it, but our knowledge base is the full library of all the articles about Donify, including forms and triggers and all the advanced things and opportunities. So that's the textbook about Donify. But also one thing I would encourage you to do is to go to and join our Donify chat group. So Donify chat is a community, currently 535 members, where you can ask questions. How do you do this? What would you advise about the best way to do that? And you get answers from other people who've been using Donify for some time, who give their time up to do that. You can give some answers too, obviously, as you get more experienced in Donify. And it's a really good place just to to be part of the community. We do deep dives as well. So deep dives are a monthly in-depth look at one feature, like opportunities or direct debits or gift aid, where we do sort of half an hour, 45-minute sort of deep dive into how those things work. And if you've missed any deep dives that you're interested in, you can always go to our YouTube channel to find the past ones. So on our website somewhere is our YouTube channel, which will take you to it. Can't think where it is now. Anyway, if you just search YouTube Donify, you'll find it. So they are the places that you can get help, and we look forward to seeing you on there. So that wraps up the welcome to Donify. Any questions, do get in touch through any of those methods, and we look forward to working with you in the near future.